Hello and welcome to the edition of the TSO and Wholesale Graduate and Apprentice newsletter. My name is Amy Hadley and I'm a second year graduate within the TSO comms team. These videos are for us as graduates and apprentices to find out a bit more about what goes on behind the scenes and meet some interesting people and characters. Today I have the pleasure of having a quick chat with Nicola Millard, who is the Head of Customer Insight and Futures, a topic I know you're all really interested about. Firstly, thank you for taking the time. I know you've had a bit of a journey getting here today to have a quick chat with us, so let's begin. Briefly, can you describe your role at BT and what does a normal day look like for you?
Oh, blimey. Okay, so I head up Customer Insight and Futures, so I'm part of the innovation team that works with global services. So although I'm technically in TSO, it's one of those weird teams that are sort of split. So I report up to Chris Cochran. So my role largely is to take a lot of the stuff that goes on at the Dastral Park, so a lot of the research, a lot of our university research as well, and really channel that into thought leadership for our large global corporates. So I spend most of my time working with government and retailers and banks, trying to sort of stimulate discussion around sort of disruptors, trends, stuff like that. Now, I'm not a technologist, most of the rest of my team are. I'm a psychologist by background, so my role largely is to look at the trends that impact us as people. So what's the impact of technology on the way that we work, the way that we consume, and also why do we accept technologies as well? So what makes people accept or reject technology? So my role largely is to work with key decision makers in our customers, in our multinational corporates, to try and stimulate conversation about strategy, and then obviously we can take on that conversation and say, what can we do to help?
How long have you been at BT and how did you come about working for BT?
So I've been with BT as of last October 25 years, so obviously I started when I was 6, and thank you for laughing, and I got recruited in 1990 actually into a unit called Human Factors, which was an eclectic group of people, it has to be said, so into a Dastral Park, or BT Laboratories as it was then called. So we were an eclectic group of social scientists, largely looking at aspects of human factors, so whether it be usability, actually in my case it was artificial intelligence, because if you're interested in technology and psychology, you've got two ways of going really. You look at artificial intelligence and expert systems, or you look at usability and sort of design. And I did both actually, but I was recruited in to help build the first ever expert system deployed within Europe in a contact centre. So we built something called ESCAFI, Expert Systems for Customer Facing Environments, and actually trialled it live in a couple of our contact centres. And it's really quite weird because I'm now actually working on initiatives around AI and expert systems in contact centres. So what goes around comes around.
Around in a full circle.
Absolutely, it's come full circle.
So building on that, how did you get to where you are now?
Oh, well, I wish I said I had a career plan, because it's kind of largely been accidental. So I spent probably about 7 to 8 years in research, again based mostly at a Dastral Park. So I did research. I was really fortunate to get involved with some fantastic research programs. Obviously the expert systems piece, a lot to do with contact centres, but also during the 1990s BT was really transforming in terms of the way that it worked. So I was working on a program called Workstyle 2000, which was all about reinventing the way BT worked. So I spent a lot of time sort of working on research around that sort of cultural human aspects, and a lot of design. I did usability and stuff like that. So I then evolved, so I moved into the operational area for a while, so I moved into what is now consumer customer service. Again, looking at contact centres, but looking at deployment of new technology into contact centres and how we could accelerate the acceptance of that technology. So that became the focus of my PhD, actually, oddly enough, which BT also kindly sponsored. But I then moved out of the operational area and more into the consulting space, and I have to say I'm not a great consultant, because consultancy often requires you selling stuff off the back of it, and I'm probably the world's worst salesperson. So I didn't do terribly well there, but I kind of then got offered a role within global services, which kind of blended research and consulting, and then marketing rather cheekily called me a futurologist, which then got lots of crystal ball jokes. So I've actually lost the futurology job title as of about 2 years ago, but innovation is very much key, and it is a lovely blend of research and consulting.
Very interesting. So what do you think the biggest challenge facing BT is at the moment?
Well, I think actually it's a really exciting time for BT at the moment for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So we're moving into new markets. We've got the EE acquisition and the capabilities that brings with it. So I'm not sure that it's challenges. I think it's kind of really exciting. And there are going to be some really interesting developments over the next year, I suspect, as we move EE and BT together. So I'm really quite looking forward to the year.
Yeah, I think we all are. So you talked a bit about your career. What has been the highlight so far?
Wow, the highlight.
One thing.
Well, probably getting my PhD. As I said, BT very kindly said when we had this kind of conversation with Lancaster University.
Oh, that's where I went.
Best university, obviously. Obviously we have a lot of university partners, and the frustration was I'd been in research for 8 years and hadn't got a PhD.
Yeah.
But I'd been doing postgraduate research. So actually with Lancaster we started a dialogue saying, could they actually use the stuff that I'd done actually within the research context in BT and actually use that as the basis of a PhD. So they actually did, and I have no idea if this program is still going, but there were a few of us that took that challenge on to actually take the research that we had been doing and turn it into something that was academically valid. So I think, in terms of highlights, getting a PhD whilst working full time, I don't necessarily recommend this, but so I was working full time doing my PhD part time, and I managed to do it in 2 years, which is remarkable, but kept me relatively sane, because I suspect if it had tipped into 3, I probably would have gone slightly insane because I was working stupid hours. But that kind of opportunity comes up once, and I grabbed it, and I'm really, really happy I did.
Yeah, amazing. So, I assume you may have had a bit of a fail moment in BT where you thought, oh God, have I really done that? Can you tell us about a time that has happened, if it has, and how did you recover from it?
Well, I keep saying in innovation it's weird because failure is almost inevitable.
Yeah.
In innovation. Most innovation fails, and I think over the years trialling new technologies within BT, there have been so many failures, but I never look at failure as a negative, because it's something you can learn from. Yeah. And I think we almost in the innovation space have this motto around, fail fast, fail cheap, preferably, but learn from your failures, and that's the absolute key. So I would say a lot of the initiatives I worked on have failed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've learned a lot from those failures. Make
them better.
Absolutely.
Outside of BT, what do you get up to in your spare time?
Well, I have to say I'm a bit of a workaholic, so my spare time is usually a little blurred, but I'm very into cinema. I live opposite a cinema.
Oh wow!
So that's the bad thing. So I think I saw something like 108 films last year.
Oh my god!
So I do kind of live in the cinema. I'm a huge cinema fan. And hello to Jason Isaacs if anyone's a Wittertony out there. I love cinema. I do a lot of sport, so I'm very interested in martial arts. I used to do judo. I now do. Judo's I'm getting old, so I've had to give up judo, but I do Tai Chi now, which is lovely. I also swim, and I have swum since I was 3, so
oh, wow.
I'm always in a pool at some point during the week, so I try to keep myself fit as well.
So pool, cinema and martial arts.
Absolutely.
Great. So you mentioned a bit about being a workaholic. How do you balance your career and your personal life to make the best out of both?
I would say I'm quite bad at that. I don't think necessarily it's a problem. Actually, it's been the focus of some of our research with Cambridge University around things like work-life balance and techno-stress and things like, the fact that we are continuously often interrupted in our personal lives by work. I would say I find it very hard to switch off.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. But because I enjoy my job, it's not necessarily a problem. So I kind of like blurring the aspects of work and life, because actually my job's really interesting. I'm always learning on my job. I'm always getting something back off my job. So my work-life balance is probably not great, and I travel a lot as well, which is it can be a good thing. It's always interesting to see new places, and obviously being in global services, I get to see a lot of new places and new cultures. You sometimes don't necessarily see that much, but obviously inevitably travel. Yeah. Although fun, it can be quite tiring.
Yeah, but what's the best place that you've been to?
Oh, blimey! I mean, I love Sydney. It's probably one of my favourite places on earth. But I've been to fascinating places like Beijing is amazing, Shanghai as well. LA I was in last
wow.
year as well, so I get about a bit.
So how does the work you do link in with grads and apprentices?
So a lot of the research that I'm doing, because it's around people, we've been doing a lot around the future of work. And obviously graduates and apprentices ultimately are the future of work. So that's perfectly, very key.
Perfectly fitting.
I think a lot of the stuff I obviously do is for our customers, so it's for our large corporates, but I think we're a large corporate, so it applies just as much. So we're looking at things like the fact that we have a diverse workforce in BT. We have 5 generations at work for the first time.
Oh wow.
Our average age, I think, in BT is about 44 at the moment, so we definitely need new blood in. But the danger then is, how do we actually get multiple generations, multiple multiple groups, diverse groups, to actually work together? Diversity is brilliant, because you need diversity for innovation. But it also can create fragmentation, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges. But certainly I know some of the research guys that I work with at Adastral Park have been working on a lot around graduate morale and motivation, and I've been sort of feeding off some of that. Motivation is definitely a topic I'm interested in, so that's very, very central to a lot of the stuff that we're doing around the future of work.
Very interesting. And finally, if you could say something to a new joiner, if you think back to your beginning of your career, what advice would you give them?
Crikey. I think firstly, BT is a big company which has its virtues but also its challenges. So actually understanding BT is a big challenge. So I think that's the first thing, is understanding what kind of company you've joined and the scope of this company. It's an amazing company. I wouldn't have stayed for 25 years if it wasn't. And I think many people share that opinion. I think the other thing is, get to know people, network. And I think certainly some of the stuff that we're going to have to do lifelong learning for a start. So the future of work also implies that we need to have lots of interests, we need to evolve our skills, we need to network very effectively, we need to collaborate more effectively. So do all of that, get to know people, talk to people from around the business, find out interesting things, figure out what you want to do, and if you do want to do it, go and ask somebody who's doing something similar, how do you get there, can I get involved? And so I think, working in a big company can offer a lot of things. It's just sometimes bewildering to navigate through it.
Excellent. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I hope you've enjoyed doing this video, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. There'll be lots more to come in next edition of the newsletters. So that's all from me, Nicola. So thank you for watching.